Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. You're here for day 4 of Teen Driver Education, the Hernandez Driveway. Everyone, so sorry for the slight delay there, but we're going to go ahead and jump right into today's presentation. Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Me, I love this nice warm weather, so I preferred today much over the cold. But we left off here with question number 25. If a driver is under 21, their driver's license may be suspended for the first offense of driving while intoxicated, and that's any amount of alcohol. You have 2 ounces of wine and get checked 20 minutes later, boom, you could lose your license for 6 months to 2 years. All right? Refusing to provide a sample causes you to immediately lose it for the 6 months. Same thing for adults. Right? Now, the worst offense a driver 21 or over can be charged with for operating a motor vehicle in a public place under the influence of alcohol or drugs and causing the death of another or accident by mistake is intoxication manslaughter. Now, here's the thing about intoxication manslaughter, folks, and I talk about this every class, and I try to because there's a matter of responsibility here. If we make the mistake and we get behind the wheel of a car and we've chosen to drink and drive and we take someone's life, one of the things that the lawyer is going to do is argue away what they can. And if they get rid of the intoxicated, if they prove or have the evidence that proved you were intoxicated thrown out, and you are no longer liable for intoxication manslaughter because you were not intoxicated, well, then you're now up for involuntary manslaughter, which has a mandatory minimum of 7 to 15 years. All right? Whereas intoxication manslaughter has a maximum of 7 years because they understand that, being drunk puts you in a frame of mind where you may make bad decisions. And they understand you're not wholly in control of your mental processes because bad ideas don't sound terrible when you are intoxicated. So when we have this happen to us in our lives, we need to take responsibility for it because parole on intoxication manslaughter can happen after 3.5 years. Parole on involuntary manslaughter will happen after 7.5 years. Okay? You will be in jail for a minimum of 7 years. And then the parole process will start. Don't do that to yourselves, folks. If this happens, and I hope it doesn't, because none of y'all should be drinking and driving. Drink responsibly. You can do other stuff, do it responsibly. But when it comes to driving, we need to be crisp. We need to be good, folks. All right. Okay. Now, what is carbon monoxide and how may it be harmful to drivers? Well, carbon monoxide is an odorless, colorless gas that may, can, and will lead to unconsciousness and or death if you get enough prolonged exposure. All right? And it is found not just in your car exhaust, but carbon monoxide is the product of, or is a product of combustion, of fire. Stuff burns, carbon monoxide is manufactured, sometimes in small quantities, sometimes in great quantities. All right? But it is found in your car exhaust because our vehicles are internal combustion engines, unless you have an electric car. Then you have no exhaust. Now, you need to make sure that you start your car in a well-ventilated area. Why? Well, on top of being an odorless, colorless gas that could lead to unconsciousness and or death, carbon monoxide shares traits with strychnine. And the thing about strychnine is you can slowly get small doses, small doses, small doses. That's how rat poison works, right? The rats eat a little bit of it and a little bit of it and a little bit of it, and it builds up in their system. And then once they've had enough, it desiccates you and it kills you. Well, carbon monoxide works similarly. You get in a little bit, it stays in your system. A little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. Exposure over a couple of weeks on a daily basis, and boom, now you pass out in your driveway, in your garage, because you were warming up the car. And maybe nobody comes by to check on you for a couple hours, and you stayed in there breathing that in for another couple hours, and your life is no more. All right, but another reason we want to make sure that we're in a well-ventilated area is because quite often when we do have that garage that stays nice and warm in the wintertime, or at least is warmer in the wintertime for our fur buddies than being outside, we've got them in there. And what happens when they breathe in carbon monoxide? The exact same thing that happens to you. Is that it builds up in their system. The only difference is they quite often weigh a fraction of what you do. All right? If somebody's got a Mastiff, an Irish Wolfhound, something monumentally large, maybe even a Caucasian, that's a huge dog, then maybe your dog outweighs you and it can take more carbon monoxide before it dies. But if you got a Chihuahua, what's enough to kill you may be enough to kill it 30 times over. So make sure you are not warming up your vehicle inside a closed garage. The buildup of those fumes is bad for your pets, bad for you. Don't sit in there. Pull the car out, let it sit out in the open, warming up, right? Once the engine's warm, that heater will blow warm air, right? That's the only reason to warm up a vehicle at this point. We used to have to warm them up because we had carburetors. We had drip fuel dispensation to the engine, or distribution to the engine, not dispensation, excuse me. Now we have fuel injection. So fuel injection doesn't need you to warm up your car unless you're warming up for the heater. So if you got places to go, just get in your car and go. Don't bother warming up the car. If you want the heater to be warm, then you warm up the car in a well-ventilated area and you deal with 30 seconds of cold so that your heater's running warm. All right? Let's see here. Now describe what you should do if you have a blowout while driving. Well, a blowout is the only time you will press the brakes, but you don't press them aggressively. You're going to take your foot off the gas, and you're going to press the brakes only until that point where they start working. Once they start working, that's it. You don't press any further. You don't want to keep going because then you run the risk that you're going to make your car bounce. You just press those brakes to the braking point so the car starts slowing down and you come to a safe stop. Right? Steer straight ahead, pull off to the side of the road if you're able to, and stop completely with that blowout. All right? And then, of course, change your tire or call to get some help. Right? But do not jam on those brakes, because if you do, you ever had one of those tables that all the legs weren't the same length, and anytime someone like sat down or put something down and touched it on the other side, that one side would flop and some glasses would fall over or plates would rattle, things like that? Right. Well, the same thing happens with your car. And if you hit the brakes hard, it's going to bounce on the metal and then bounce on the tire and bounce on the metal and on the tire and cause lots of damage to your vehicle. All right, so brake gently and come to a stop. All right, what do you do if you damage an unattended vehicle? Run, hide, hope nobody saw. Oh, wait, no, that's what people do, not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do, in fact, is locate the owner-operator of the unattended vehicle and provide the name and phone number of the person that hit it, meaning you. All right? If you are unable to find the owner in whatever time frame you deem acceptable, you may leave a note securely attached in a visible way with the information required to file a police report and an insurance claim, meaning your name, your address, and your insurance provider and your policy number. Okay. Now, you also need to file a report with police department, because even if you're not able to find them, if you did deal damages and you flee and that note goes away, then they can just press criminal charges for hit and run, and they'll review the security footage, because there's cameras everywhere now. Mom and pop shops got better cameras than, like the FBI had 30 years ago. Right. Straight up, 4K cameras are less than $100, super easy to install. People have amazing definition cameras out in front of their businesses. If this happens, Walmart, they can get your license plate from the building to 150 yards away. Okay, that's how good their cameras are. So leave the note, and then you call the police department, you file an information report, and if it's determined that you're liable for damages, then you're liable for damages. But if you didn't do enough damage to be liable for damages, then because you filed a report, nothing else is going to happen. If you run away, you may get charged with hit and run. So don't do that. All right. Now, what qualifications must one have to teach someone with a learner license to drive? All right, this is very simple. I've said it before, we'll say it again. All right. A licensed driver must be at least 21 years of age with at least 1 year of driving experience. They must occupy the seat beside the driver and cannot be intoxicated, asleep, or engaging in any activity that prevents him or her from observing and responding to the actions of the driver. All right, now simplified, they've got to have a license, they've got to be over 21, they need to have had that license for at least a year, and they have to be in the front seat paying attention. How terrible. All right, folks, that means that you can't claim someone's giving you a driving lesson if they're under the influence, if they're not paying attention. If you get pulled over because the officer saw the passenger on YouTube or whatever playing with their phone, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm giving him a driving lesson, and he's like, but I just saw you on your phone. You couldn't have been giving a lesson, and you can get a ticket for driving without a license because you did not have a licensed operator actively paying attention to you in the front seat, right? That's all we need from someone teaching us to drive. They actually have to be making an effort to teach us to drive, not letting us drive while they watch YouTube, okay? Just saying. TikTok, neither. No, none of that. Right. Now, if a person is under 18, when does his or her provisional license expire? Well, their provisional license will expire. It's all in the question, folks. If you're under 18, your stuff expires the day you turn 18. But the state of Texas now permits you to renew 60 days in advance, either in person or online. Online renewals can be done every other time. All right? So if you want to prolong you having to go to the DMV and you want to keep getting to use that young picture of you, then go in person when you turn 18, 60 days before, all the way up to your birthday. After that, it expires. Go in person, and then when you turn 26 and you have to renew the license, 24 and you have to renew the license, then you don't have to go in. You can just do it online, and then you don't go back until you're 30. And then it's every 12 years, because 6 years later, you renew online. 6 years later, you go in person. That's how they update your photo. Now, when parked parallel, your curbside wheels must be no more than how many inches from the curb? All right? You should be about 6 to 18 inches from the curb or the edge of the road when you finish your parking parallel. All right? But so many people worry about parallel parking that they kind of turn it into like a monster in their head. And you shouldn't, folks, because parallel parking is rather simple. And we teach you the most intelligent, the simplest, the most commonsensical way to parallel park. We really do. We teach you back end first parallel parking. Right? And I will explain it with words here in a few minutes. And I promise you that it's just as easy as the description. But check it out. Now, on the test, people get worried because they're going to lose points on the parallel parking. So, parallel parking is 9 points. All right? It's 9 points. You get points for control, observation, position, and signal. All right? That means your control. Are you making the car do what you want? Observation. Are you looking in the direction that the vehicle is moving with occasional glances in the mirrors? Yeah, we can look backwards while we back up. Position, well, that's what the 6 to 18 inches is. And signal. Did you use your turn signal? Did you use your turn signal and then turn it back on when it turned off automatically? Yes, then you got all the points for control. You got all the points for observation. You got all the points for signal. And all you lose for position is 2 points. Okay. Now, if anyone in here is like the valedictorian and the thought of getting a 98 on an exam breaks your heart and makes you want to like start sending all your friends memes with like weeping people, I'm sorry, but a 98 is still a great score. All right, I scored a 96 when I took my driving test back in 1999, just before the turn of the millennium. All right, so y'all can all do better than me because I did it without driver's education. Y'all have the benefit of driver's ed. You have the benefit of someone telling you exactly what you need to do, not having to figure it out by yourself via books and nonsense. Right? So, folks, don't worry about those 2 points. Don't worry about that slight position, because as long as you get the rest, that's still a 98 out of 100 that you're rocking and rolling with. And as long as you don't make any other mistakes, you can still outscore me. So good luck on that. All right? I had one young lady, I told her there was no reason for you to do worse than me because you got this. She got a 98. She outscored me. I was so proud of her. Now, and I'd be proud of anyone of y'all, because y'all are awesome. Anyway, so you want to parallel park, right? So now's the time to get her done. So we line up our car beside the vehicle we want to parallel park. Okay, put 6 to 18 inches between you and that vehicle, and you will wind up 6 to 18 inches from the curb if you do everything else perfect. All right? You are going to line up the front of your back tire with the back corner of their vehicle. All right? This is going to ensure that once we start reversing, we will definitely not hit their vehicle, no matter what, unless we turn the wheel the wrong way. Okay? No, even still, we wouldn't hit their vehicle. So yeah, park it with your back tire like right in front of the back corner of their vehicle. Okay, so there is no overlap between the tire and their rear bumper. Okay, 6 to 18 inches away. Now we signal to the right. We turn the steering wheel all the way to the right because we are going to back the car up to the right And turning the steering wheel is the same direction, whether going forwards or going backwards. Okay. So you turn the wheel all the way to the right, and your signal's going to stay on, because when you turn the wheel to the right with your right signal on, nothing happens. The second you start turning your wheel to the left, your signal will turn off. Okay. So once you've got all that done, and for the practice, folks, for the exam, we've got 2 poles set up so that you're not actually approaching vehicles. Right? One pole represents the center of the vehicle you will be parking in front of. The other one represents that back corner that you need to line the front of your back tire up with. Okay? So you back it up. You back up slowly while you're looking back. Occasional glances forward. And when your vehicle is now at a 45-degree angle, you stop the car. But remember, as we stop, we're looking back. That's how we get those observation points. Right now, we turn the steering wheel all the way to the left. Your turn signal will turn off almost immediately. Hits, turn the turn signal back up, and now we back up to the left. You look back. Once the vehicle is straightened out and you see that you're straight, you stop the car. Okay? Straighten out your wheels. Pull forward just a little bit to center yourself in position, or don't. Just straighten your wheels and stay there. And boom. You have successfully parallel parked and done so well. Now, if you get that 45-degree angle perfect, whatever the distance between you and the vehicle was when you got next to it, that'll be your distance to the curb. If you were off, then you'll be closer or further. That's okay, folks. All right? It's not a big deal to be closer or further. You could be pointed the wrong direction, and you'll lose 2 points. And you could mess up so bad that somehow you're perpendicular to the curb, and you will still only lose 2 points for position as long as you did everything else right. Okay? You're fine. This is a simple process. Do not make it scary in your head, because it's not. Like, just real easy stuff. Right? Now, when following another car, what is a good distance at which you should follow behind? All right, for speeds under 30 miles an hour, the minimum time with good road conditions is 2 seconds. For speeds above 30, maintain 4 seconds. At expressway speeds, maintain 5 or 6 seconds. Novice drivers should have at least an extra 2 seconds above all of those numbers. So for y'all, as you begin, speeds under 30, not 2, but 4. Speeds above 30, not 4, but 6. Expressway speeds, not 5, but 7. Right? This is going to give you extra space, extra time, because you cannot be proactive. You cannot respond to a problem before it happens, because you don't have the experience necessary to do that, to fully use the IPDE to stay safe. But you'll get there. Right? But you can be responsive. You can see the stuff go down, and boom, it gets logged in your brain. You'll recognize it the next time it's setting up, or you should. But you'll have the time, space, and distance to stay safe. But we're talking about following distance as a factor of time. Well, how do we determine that? How do we measure time while driving? Well, that's easy, right? There are posts, poles, lines. The pavement changes colors. Solid lines begin or end. There's all kinds of things on the roadway that we can use as little landmarks. Well, once the vehicle you're following gets to a little landmark, you start counting. 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm 3 seconds behind this vehicle. If you're traveling at speeds under 30 miles an hour or less, you're probably good. If you're going 40 miles an hour or faster, you probably need to open that up a little more. How do we open it up? We take our foot off the gas, let the vehicle pull ahead of us, and then get back on the speed. And then find another landmark. And now we do it again. This time 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4 seconds, we're good here. But remember, give yourselves a couple extra seconds of following space so that if something happens, you have time to recognize it, respond, hit the brakes, and do what you got to do. You'll give yourself that extra time to think so that you can use that IPDE to stay safe. All right? Now, at highway speeds, you want to put around 5 to 6 seconds in between you and the car ahead of you. As I mentioned, 7 to 8 for novice drivers, just because it does give you that little extra cushion. But with that much space, not occasionally, basically every time you're on the roadway, another car is going to cut between you and the car ahead of you. Well, what do? How do we respond to this? We scream at them, we wave our fist. Nah, we just take our foot off the accelerator. drop back and open up our 6 seconds. Get our 8 seconds or 7 seconds, whatever you gave yourself, you open that up. Why? Because it's safe. If the blue car explodes and you are 7 seconds behind them, you'll be able to hit the brakes, stop before you even get to it. Okay? Like it just mafia hit explosion. You'll be able to stop. Right? At 4 seconds, you may not. Right? So be careful, folks. All right. Now, to what agency and within what time period must a change of address be reported for driver's licensing purposes? I believe I mentioned to y'all, and if I didn't, I moved from apartment 21 to apartment 24 at the exact same address. I was required by law to notify DPS within 30 days. Got a new driver's license, had to pay $17 to get a new one that had the new address on it, but we have to do this. And we do this because, as we said, a driver's license is responsibility. Well, one of the things that we do is provide them our home address so that if we break the law, they know where to come get us. They know where to come look for us. That's why we have it up to date. All right? If you don't keep it up to date, they can pull your license. It's like, is this still the correct residence for you? Oh, no, we haven't lived there for 3 years. You know you have a warrant for your arrest? No, I didn't know that. Yeah, we're going to take your license away. That's what would happen because you did not update the information. The information must be updated anytime you move, even if it's just one apartment number. And then if you move to another state, if you go in and get the license from that state within 30 days with your new address, you probably won't even have to take a test, nothing. They'll just give it to you. But if you've been living in another state for a year and then you finally decide, they may make you take that state's driving exam and written exam. So, 30 days, folks. All right. What effect does the use of marijuana and amphetamine have on driving? Well, first and foremost, what effects does the use of cannabis and amphetamine have on driving? Marijuana is a Spanish word, and it's listed as that because when they were originally making it illegal, they were going after Latino population. I'm not a big fan of that word when it comes to legal stuff, so I make the distinction. Thank you. All right. The problem with weed, there we go, it's in English, is that one of the main ingredients is THC. All right. Now, I don't smoke weed, but I do have hemp. And hemp also has THC in it. That's the active ingredient. It's just lower quantities, legal amounts. I'm cool with it because I have glaucoma and migraines. Takes care of my problem. Right. But I cannot drive on this. I cannot. Right. My daughter tossed me a bag of popcorn, and it just like full on hit me in the face because your brain is not able to keep up with what's going on. Your brain is lagging behind, and you think, I'm smooth, I got this, as the bag smacks you in the face. She thought it was hilarious. I was like, this is why you shouldn't smoke and drive. All right, folks, because THC is a mild grade hallucinogen, and what it does is it creates a disinterlace in your visual cortex. What does that mean? That means it creates visual lag. Your brain is processing what it's seeing a second or two or a fraction of a second later than it should be because THC. All right? So not a good thing while driving because you think you're about to swerve and avoid hitting something and you hit it right before you started swerving. That's what a disinterlace would do. That's what lag would do if you were actually driving in a car. Okay? It'd be like watching a recording of you driving that's a second behind where you are. That's crazy. Nobody would do that. Well, that's what smoking herb does. So, no cannabis in driving, please. All right? Now, amphetamines are things like meth and cocaine, and those scared the hell out of me. Never ever tried them. However, I do know people that have because, I'm from here. And there are studies that do show that amphetamines can boost focus. When they're taking them as recreational drugs, the quantity they're taking, instead of being like, my world has condensed to something I can handle, it's more like, hi everybody, this is all I've got left for frickin' attention because this stuff has me so wired. So, yes, they can increase focus, but they dial it in too far. All right? It is very hard to stay safe on the roadway when all you can pay attention to is what's in front of you. All right? So, don't do drugs. When it comes to the driving test, drug questions are very easy. Drug questions are very, very easy. Why? Because on the exam, on the written test, not the driving test, excuse me, on the written DPS exam, drug questions are all formulated the same way. Drugs are good, drugs are bad, drugs do nothing. Well, guess what, folks? You choose the answer that says drugs are bad, and you will be absolutely correct on all those drug questions. But that's common sense at this point, folks, so I hope you got it. All right, now what is the penalty for being convicted of driving while intoxicated? Well, if you are over the age of 21 and convicted of driving while intoxicated means you have to be over 21, otherwise it would be minor or, a minor driving while intoxicated, because if it's a charge against a minor, it has to say that it's a minor, right? So as an adult, the first time you get pulled over for driving while intoxicated, you pay the low cost of $2,000. To put that in perspective, if you have a full-time minimum wage job, you will earn $2,000 in 2 months. Anybody want to work for 2 months to pay one ticket? One ticket because they bought $20 worth of beer at a bar. Yeah, no, not so much. And the problem is that's just the citation. My brother actually, unfortunately, does have a drinking problem, and he's gotten to the second one of these, my oldest brother. And he spent a total of $14,000 on the two. Now, $6,000 of that was fine. Where's the other $8,000? Well, you got to pay court costs, lawyer fees. You got to go to counseling, and if the judge says, well, you make enough money, you pay for the counseling, you then have to pay for the counseling. You may have to miss work because you were detained, arrested. He missed a whole week of work, and for him, that's some serious cash. And so grand totaled out to about $14,000 for 2 tickets of driving while intoxicated. Now he buys lots of alcohol and stays home. Folks, it's just not worth drinking and driving. You put other people's lives at risk, but best case scenario, you get pulled over before you hurt anyone, and you're out 2 months, 6 months, a year's worth of wages. And you do not want to work for the next year just to pay off a couple of tickets because you like to go to the bar and drink. Don't do it, folks. Not worth it. All right. Now, what does a green arrow showing with a red light mean? Well, just like every other green light, it means when everything is clear and safe, we may proceed in that direction with caution. All right. A green arrow displayed at the same time as a red light means the driver can proceed carefully in the direction of the arrow after yielding the right-of-way to all other vehicles and pedestrians. Right? And we still do our checks. We still do our observation. We don't take it for granted because people run red lights. If you see a car is coming straight at you and you're about to turn and you're like, that car ain't slowing down, you can stop because you looked and they run past you, and then you finish your turn. And they were the psycho that ran the red light. But see, you didn't die in a car crash because you made sure everything was cool. Right? We always do this before we take off for a green light. Right? We look, we check, we make sure everyone else is doing the right thing. That's how you avoid accidents. Like 2 months ago, I was about to take off crossing 10th Street in McAllen, and I was like, nope. And I just waited, and a half a second later, car shot through the intersection I was about to go through. Super red light. Could have been me. I had the green. I decided to wait. Right? Because we look, we check, we make sure. Right? Now, this is the only time you have the right of way while turning left. Any other time you turn left, you're doing what is called at your own risk. Right? What does that mean? That means you have to wait till everything is awesome and you're going to have the 6 seconds, the 8 seconds that you need to turn before you go, because if you don't, you'll be responsible for the collision because you're the one that pulled out in front of traffic. Every other time, the left is at your own risk, so make sure everything's safe before you go, folks. The green arrow, just give it that check and make sure nobody's about to make a mistake before you proceed with caution. All right. Now, many times we see cars do this nonsense and it needs to stop. All right. They pull into the turning lane, not to make a left turn, but to then make a right lane change and move into traffic. All right. Once their little gap comes up, they move over into traffic and they're like, yay, I'm going in the direction I want. Problem is that lane is called the shared left turn lane. And you should not be getting in it unless it's an emergency or you are turning left. This maneuver that the person just did is dangerous because then we get this situation happening at the same time. So now let's say Mr. Purple's just sitting there waiting for the yellow car to pass so they can, or the mustard car because the front one's yellow, to pass so that they can move into their lane of traffic, right? Now, Mr. Red is a box truck. It's a bread truck. Why not? Because, people follow bread trucks really closely because they're crazy. It's a big old box truck, and Mr. Green is driving this little, Ford Fiesta, and he's just following too closely behind the box truck because that's how people drive down here. And then he sees his favorite tattoo parlor. He's like, oh, good, the corner I need to turn is right here. Let me get into the turning lane. And because they were behind the vehicle, because they were following too closely, they couldn't see you. They couldn't see the purple car, and so they just slide on over, and boom. Now at 45 miles an hour, you have less than a 20% chance of sustaining no death or injury. All right, well, that means that on most roads, getting into this kind of collision could result in your death. Now, let's make it more dangerous. Let's say you're pulling into that lane from the parking lot or wherever you were coming out of, the road that you're turning from, and they're coming in at the same time. Now let's add the 15 miles an hour you were going. All right, well, now that's a total combined crash force of 60 miles an hour. Because when two cars crash head on, you add their speeds to determine the force. At 60 miles an hour, you have less than a 5% chance of walking away without injury or death. Okay? If you cannot turn in the direction that you want to by getting directly into the travel lane, then go the other way. You go down the block, change lanes, get into the turning lane, take a left, take another left, take a right, and boom, you're now in the lane you want to be. Yes, it takes you 5 minutes, but what is worth more? 5 minutes of your life or the rest of it? I mean, if you absolutely, positively have to get in there right now, well, you're absolutely right, because the only way that your life will end is if you make this mistake right now, right here. So let's do it. No, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we don't have a crash and die. So we do things the safe way. If you can't pull directly into the lane you want to go into because traffic's too high, and it's happened. It happened to us on a driving lesson. We were trying to get over a street. We could not. Had to take another turn, took an extra 5 minutes, got back a couple minutes late. Oh well, life happens. Always plan for an extra few minutes of shenanigans because traffic in the valley, bug nuts. Saw two cars crash onto the expressway. They were only going like 8 miles an hour, minimal damage to either car. I could already tell that nobody was going to get a payout from the insurance company. They stayed right there, 4 cars ahead of me, blocking both lanes of traffic on a 2-lane expressway until the cops showed up. Because they didn't want to move their cars. Right? People do silly things all the time, folks. Okay? Absolutely silly things all the time. Right? Don't do silly things. Don't choose to do silly things. Okay? The second you're choosing to do something because you're going to save time or because you're in a rush, you're choosing to put yourself and others at risk. Right? We don't do that. Right, now, under what conditions are overtaking and passing to the right permitted? Well, if the road is clear of parked vehicle and or other things and is wide enough for 2 or more lanes in each direction. All right? Just like if the road's wide enough for 2 lanes in each direction, we don't have to stop. We pull over and slow down, or pull off to the side and slow down to let emergency vehicles by. Well, if the road is that wide and there's nothing blocking the way, you can pass to the right. Right? If you are on a one-way road, if there's a car in the left lane, you can pass them on the right lane. That's passing to the right. And then this next one, I love that this is a legal option because it's relatively new, but it is smart and it is beneficial because you may pass on a paved shoulder when the vehicle you are passing is slowing down or stopped on the main traveled portion of the highway, disabled, or preparing to turn left, but only if the shoulder is paved. What does that mean? That means if you have a shoulder that is wide enough for you to pass them on and they're broken down or waiting to turn, you can go around them on the shoulder. This is the only time you are allowed to pass on the shoulder. And I love it because normally we pass to the right. If you pass a vehicle that's attempting to turn left on their right side, well, they're going to crash directly into you. See that little blue arrow showing where he wants to go? If we try to pass on that left side, we're going to get into his path of travel and we could wind up in a collision. So the law lets us pass to the right if they're disabled or if they're turning left. Okay? Or if they're just completely stopped in the roadway. Okay? We just assume they're disabled when they do that. But we can pass them on the right shoulder if it's wide enough for our car and it's paved. That's awesome. All right? Boom, just like that. All right, this is the only exception to when you may use the shoulder to pass. All other times, if someone's just driving slower than you, you are not allowed to use the shoulder to get around them. You are not. Please don't do that. Right? When a driver is waiting to make a left turn, what is the procedure they should take when the light turns green? All right, so the other day, as if it was so long ago, yesterday, I told y'all that one of the questions should have been a little later so that we could have understood the situation better. All right, this is that question. This is the situation where the light has just turned green and you want to make a legal left-hand turn. Well, what do? Okay, well, one car is allowed to move into the intersection and wait. And they wait, and they wait. Now, when you pull into the intersection, you pull in and you leave your wheels straight. You don't turn them in anticipation of the turn. You leave them pointed straight forward. Regardless of how many cars could fit in there, only one is allowed in there. All right? Now, once the car has turned, the next car may move forward into the intersection, but not until it's completely out of the way. All right? Even if the light turns red, if you're stuck in the middle, remember, green does not mean go. Green means we may go once the road is clear of pedestrians, motorists, and bicycles, other non-motorized vehicles. All right? Once everyone is gone, then you may go. So if you're stuck in the middle, everyone else has to wait for you to go. Now, only once in my life have people not waited and it scared the hell out of me because like 20 people did not know what was going on and were not doing the right thing. And because I was in front of traffic and I looked over terrified thinking people were about to ram me and all of them had that mem face, like the young lady is like, doesn't know what the hell's going on. Because yeah, we have to wait until everyone gets out of the intersection. All right, and folks, the reason we leave our wheels pointed straight is because sometimes you know what to do, but the person behind you doesn't, and they follow you into the intersection. Now, if your wheels are already turned in anticipation of a turn, and you get hit from behind, your vehicle's going to go into that lane, an oncoming car will hit you, and then boom, collision. But if you leave your wheels straight, that person rear ends you, your vehicle will go forward. As long as the vehicle's straight ahead of you in the other turning lane opposite you isn't also forward, you shouldn't hit anything except that person that hit you from behind, and that accident's clearly their fault. All right, folks? So one vehicle at a time, they pull forward into the intersection, leave your wheels straight, and you wait. Once you have that 6 to 7 second gap in traffic that you can turn in front of or turn into, you do so, you get across, and boom, then the next person can pull forward. If the light turns red while you are waiting, as soon as traffic stops coming from the opposite direction and it's safe for you to go, you complete your turn. And the other traffic is supposed to wait for you to do so. Okay? But just because you can doesn't mean you have to. If the intersection is small, if there is a ton of traffic and you see that there is just no way it's going to happen, then you may not want to. Or if you see that they are just never giving y'all the chance, then you may want to do this because then when the light turns red, at least one person gets to make that left turn every light. Right? And that's why the law is set up like this, so that at least one person will make it through each green light during extreme issues of congestion. Now, what is an uncontrolled intersection, and what precautions should a driver take when approaching one? All right. Now, an uncontrolled intersection is an intersection with no lights and signs. Typically, you see them in new developments where there's not much traffic. If no other vehicle is approaching, you do not have to stop. If another vehicle is approaching, you must use your best judgment to decide who's going to cross first. All right, if you can't tell, if you're like, wow, this is really close, then treat it like a four-way stop. Slow down, come to a stop. If they do the same, first to stop, first to go. If not, if you stop at the same time, then the person to the right gets to go. Okay? But an uncontrolled intersection could also be an intersection from a private driveway onto a regular roadway, like the exits to places like H-E-B and Walmart. Sometimes they don't have an intersection there. They don't have any kind of control to allow people to exit the premises safely. And it's, just all at your own risk. You need to make sure that everything is clear, safe, and sound before you jump out into the roadway, folks. Period. All right? What regulations should a bicycle rider observe? All of them. All the same ones as a motor vehicle, which means they need to drive on or ride on the same side of the road as us. They need to be using hand signals. All right. Because bicycle signals or hand signals are the same as those you use in a car. I haven't said these out loud yet, so how do you signal left? Well, I'm going left, I'm going that way, I signal left. How do you signal right? I'm coming back this way, so I signal right like this. How do you signal that you're slowing down and stopping? I'm slowing down, I'm going to stay right here, so you signal like this. Okay, left, you point to the left. Slowing down and stopping, you point to the ground. And turning right, you point up because you're doing it all with your left arm. Okay? It's that simple. When I was a kid, when I was 9, my tío asked me if I knew how to do the signals. And I was like, no, tío. And he's like, well, voy para allá. I'm going left. Vengo para acá. I'm coming to the right. Me quedo aquí. I'm staying right here. Never forgot it because it is that easy, folks. All right? And even if your turn signals on your vehicle all go out all at once, you can still hand signal and meet your legal requirement. Get that car down to a shop or an AutoZone to go get some bolts. All right? Now, when is a bicyclist not required to ride to the right of the roadway? Well, when they're operating a bicycle on a one-way road with 2 or more marked lanes, they can ride as near as possible to the left curb or edge of the road. And then they may ride 2 abreast in traffic when individuals riding 2 abreast on a lane road must ride in a single lane and not impede the flow of traffic. So as long as nobody's getting slowed down because there's people using the roadway to bicycle and they're going 2 by 2, they can use the roadway. But they got to signal, they got to stop for red lights, stop signs. So if you see these people doing crazy stuff while they're on a bike, you know, they're not following the law. Police can go after them if they go through an intersection on a red light. Well, I'm on a bicycle, sir. How should I know? You're supposed to. All right. What are the 3 most common motorist-caused car bicycle crashes? It's the same 3 as motorist and person and motorist and motorist. All right. It's a motorist turns left in front of an oncoming bicycle, person, or car. A motorist turns right across the path of an oncoming person, bicycle, or car. A motorist pulls away from a stop sign and fails to yield the right-of-way to a person, bicycle, or car. Right? Intersections. Anytime we interact with an intersection, we run the risk of hitting something. So we need to be sure that there's nothing there because these are the most common crashes for not just motorists and bicycles, but motorists and pedestrians and motorists and other motorists. Because intersections are where most of the nastiness happens, folks. That's why expressways are so safe. Now, what circumstances may lead to a possible loss of your license? Well, repeated violations of traffic laws. There's no set number. But if you commit enough small laws, even if they're just like parking tickets, you will eventually lose your license because you are proving to a judge that you are not going to follow the rules inherent with driving. You don't do that, a judge can decide to take your license away. All right? What else? Parental authorization withdrawn. If you are under the age of 18, your folks can call the DPS and set up an appointment to go revoke your permission to drive at any time before your 18th birthday, and then you're going to have to wait till you age out and then retake the test and take the driving test again if you've already passed it. Right? So don't upset your parents and don't do anything crazy like race. Once I know your face, once I know you're one of my students, if I see you out on the roadway racing, I will make sure the office calls your folks at home and lets them know what you were seen doing, and that at any time they can go down to the DMV and revoke your permission. All right? They sign to give permission for you to drive and are responsible for your actions. Okay? And they will face some of the responsibility if they're letting you do dangerous stuff and you wind up hurting someone. Okay? So they have every right to take your permission away. So once you get your license, you know, be cool with it. Don't abuse it. All right? Because at any point they can withdraw that permission and then you got to wait till you're 18. All right? What else? Having any kind of fake ID for yourself or your vehicle. Fake ID for you or your car, they take your real ID away. Okay? And your permit needs to be kept with you. Your permit is a state-issued ID. I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again. It is a state-issued ID, and all state-issued ID must be carried by the individual they have been issued to. Anyone else carrying it is possession of fictitious ID because that's not actually theirs. Why? Sadly, it's because state ID is a final form of identification in case the bodies are too damaged. Okay? The way the IDs are made and the materials they're made out of and the way fires work, as long as it's not too bad, your wallet, your purse should survive somewhat, and they'll be able to be like, this was Erika Hernandez. I can't even tell that was a human at this point. I mean, but they got your ID, so they know who it was. Right? That's why your parents aren't allowed to carry your ID. You don't want to carry an ID? Get yourself one of these. A little lanyard. I got my my actual license in here, and my instructor's license in there, and I don't leave home without it. They're literally attached to my keys. All right. I don't want to carry a wallet all the time. Okay, I do that because I have to have my licenses when I'm teaching. Right. And then it is illegal for parents to have your ID, so don't let them. It is your responsibility to keep track of it. All right. What else? Well, incomplete driver's education. Now that y'all have started, fantastic. You will not be able to get the license if you do not finish the 7 drives, finish the coursework, and finish paying us off. I mean, you won't even be able to get the permit if you don't finish paying us off. But you have to finish the 16 classes, 32 hours. You have to finish the 7 drives. If you do not do that, even if you turn 18, you will not be able to get your license. Until you turn 25, you need to have completed driver's ed. So now that you've started it, please finish it. Why are seatbelts important? Well, aside from the fact that Texas is a click it or ticket state, the driver and all passengers in a passenger vehicle are required to use safety belts if occupying a seat in a vehicle equipped with a safety belt. Children who are under 8 years of age and less than 4'9" in height, regardless of age, are required by law to be secured by an appropriate child passenger safety seat if occupying a seat in a vessel equipped with a safety belt. Right? Children who are at least 8 years of age but under 17, or who are under 8 years of age but taller than 4'9", must be secured in a safety belt if occupying a seat in a vehicle so equipped. But at the end of the day, if your seat has a seat belt, you have to be buckled up. Okay, children get prioritized over adults to get the seat with the seat belt. But if your seat has a seat belt, you have to put it on. If you're shorter than 4'9", if you're younger than 8, and 4'9" is regardless of age. If you are 57 years old and you're 4'8", you need a booster seat. I had a young man take my adult driver's education course. He was 21 and required a booster seat, and he loved it. He was proud of it. He called it his captain's chair, and if his friends asked him to drive, he would be like, first let me get my captain's chair. Had his own little cup holder. He kept gummies in it, like gummy bears, because it was his. And he was proud of it. He did not let it become a thing of shame because then he wouldn't have used it. It keeps him safe because he's just not tall enough to steer over the steering wheel well. There should be zero shame if you require that kind of safety equipment, folks. Please, bear that to heart. All right. Now, Texas is a click it or ticket state, so anyone not wearing their safety belt can get you a citation. All right. And they start at $200 in the state of Texas. All right. If you're sitting in the seat and there's a seat belt, put it on. All right. If you have a passenger in the vehicle and their seat has a seat belt, make them put it on because you will be held responsible. All right. If you're too short or too young, you need the booster seat. You need the car seat. Please don't argue it. These things save lives. All right. The booster seat ensures that the seat belt comes across the chest, strongest structure in our body, as opposed to our neck and coccyx, which is the little box in here that gets crushed when you get throat punched. Yeah, those are relatively fragile. And if the seatbelt's coming across your neck and you have a collision, well, it was nice knowing you. So please, booster seats. They save lives. Just like helmets. Just like seatbelts. Right? Children who are at least 8 but under 17, or under 8 but taller than 4'9", have to have a seatbelt regardless if they're riding in a car. Right? Every adult in a seat with a seatbelt must buckle up. Why is it like this? Because sometimes we fit more people than the car is supposed to. Sometimes the car is really old and doesn't have seatbelts equipped in all the spots. Right? Kids get prioritized, and if anyone's not wearing the seatbelt, you can get in trouble. Right? You're not that short or you're not that young, you still need to buckle up. Doesn't matter. All right? That chart right there shows you the progression of rear-facing to forward-facing child safety seats. But if you don't know how to put in a car seat, and you're having a kid, go to your local police department. Sometimes they have free car seats that they can give you, and they can get expensive, $160, $200 for something decent, and they'll just give you one. They'll show you how to install it, because without programs like this, babies were driving home without them. And kids were dying on the way home from the hospital because of little car crashes. Because children that young can't handle that kind of physical trauma, right? So it's the law now, because they got tired of dead babies, right? The rules are to prevent tragedy, right? Now, if you have a crash and someone is injured, you should, by law, you are required to carefully help anyone who might be hurt and send for skilled help as quickly as possible. Stop and render aid. Now, if you're not a nurse, if you're not a doctor, if you know nothing about first aid, let me teach you the two things that are going to help. One, look at them. Actually look at them from head to toe. Are they bleeding? Are their bones sticking out? Ask them, hey, does anything hurt? Right? And if they are bleeding, pressure. Hand them a rag, hand them a cloth. Just like, hey, look, I got this cloth for my car. Just press on that thing on your shoulder and just press as hard as you can. And then call the ambulance. Okay? Even if you can't do anything, even if you can't as much as offer them a rag to start the bleeding, call the ambulance and be like, hey, car accident, people are bleeding, I don't know their blood type, but it looks pretty bad. This is where we are. All right? That little bit of extra information may get them to bring blood with them, and that would be the difference between life and death on someone that's about to bleed to death. All right? So stop and render aid to the best of your abilities. All right? If you are going to be a nurse and you have a ton of first aid training, then use it. Save a life. All right? If you are a neophyte, you don't know what you're doing, and you just want to get some help, then call 911. You're still doing the best you can, and that's all that's expected of you. And if that happens and you're on your way to work, remember, you cannot get fired for that. If you do, sue their brains out. The attorney will thank you for it. All right? If you are driving at the speed limit and another driver honks their horn and starts to pass you, what do? All right, first and foremost, I know this is the Valley, so you may have seen a response to this scenario. Probably not the right one. All right? We drive with a lot of ego, unfortunately, and it's bad. And you can tell it's ego because, like, one car is trying to exit the expressway, the other one's trying to get on the expressway, and they both want to be the one up front. That's ego. If neither person is willing to slow down to let the other person move over so y'all can get out of each other's way, that was just pure ego, and that nonsense happens all the time. I'm ahead of a car. I'm already ahead of the car, so I try to move over, and what do? They gun it, and they got to get ahead of me and then move out. Because I got to be in front of you, man. I'll be 0.07 milliseconds slower getting to my destination if I'm not. And that's the end of the world, don't you know? Except it's not, folks. Losing 1 or 2 minutes? Who cares? See, dead, 2 minutes. What would you rather? Would you rather be dead or waste 2 minutes? I'll waste 2 minutes every time. That's me, right? Because I want to drive safe, right? So when another driver honks their horn and starts to pass, what do? Don't give them the finger. Don't yell at them. Don't speed up. Don't swerve towards them to run them off the road. I've seen all those activities. I've seen all those behaviors. What do? You slow down. You let them pass. Why? Well, what is a car going to do if it's about to crash in the wrong lane? Well, what it's about, or what it will do 100% of the time, is attempt to return to its original lane. If it's right next to you, that means it's going to swerve into you and try to get back into its lane to keep from getting hit head-on and dying. Because a side swipe is much more favorable than a head-on collision. Head-on collision is like certain death going 50 miles an hour. That's a 100-mile-an-hour crash. That's people are dying, all right? A side swipe, well, so you slow down so that they pass you faster. For every mile an hour you slow down, they're going to get past you 1.5 feet per second. Slow down 20 miles, boom, that's 30 feet that they just jumped ahead of you, and now they can move into your lane, and you definitely won't be hitting them. And if they wait another second, or another 10 seconds, that's another 30 feet that they got, and now they got all the room in the world they need to move over and no risk, right? But it did take 20 seconds. So slow down, let them pass. Because the longer it takes them to pass, the longer you're in danger that they're going to accidentally hit you as they try to avoid a different accident. Now, is it legal to stand in the roadway for the purposes of soliciting a ride? I love this question and I hate it because A, we need to know that this is illegal, but B, it's very wordy. This was phrased for people that know exactly what the phrase means. To break it down, to make it nice and easy, is it legal to stand in the roadway to get a ride by hitchhiking? No, it's not. Because back in the 80s, a bunch of people did a bunch of horrible stuff: rape, murder, kidnapping, arson, sodomy, all kinds of just terrible stuff, because they get picked up, it's two people in a car out in the middle of nowhere, person pulls a gun, and the situation goes south, right? Land of the free, home of the brave got to people, and they think that means they can do whatever they want, even if it's, illegal or immoral. So unfortunately, because people couldn't behave themselves, hitchhiking in the United States is illegal. It's legal in most other countries. But in the U.S., it's illegal because we can't seem to behave ourselves when we're allowed to do so. All right? So don't pick up a hitchhiker, because you can get in trouble for it. And, you could also get stabbed, shot, murdered, drugged, and then, have all your organs harvested, all kinds of horrible things. And since we live close to the border, it gets even more dicey. So do not pick up hitchhikers. It is not legal for a person to stand in the roadway to solicit a ride, right? And if you must walk on the highway, you should walk on what side of the road? Well, as my abuelo used to say, el chingazo avisa, the hit lets you know. So you have to walk on the opposite side, because otherwise that's what you're risking. Because when you're walking in the same way as traffic, if a car comes off the road and is about to hit you, you're not going to know until, bam, they hit you. But if you're walking on the opposite side of the road and a car coming from the opposite direction is coming off the road, you can Wilhelm yell, jump out the way, scream Leroy Jenkins as you run into the side of the road even further. Whatever you want to do to stay safe. But you saw it about to happen. Now, yes, they can still swerve from the other side, but that's more someone's trying to get you than someone made a mistake. All right, so you must walk, if you have to walk on the roadway, walk on the opposite side, facing traffic. That way you can respond to emergencies before they hit you, right? Then what color is a disabled person's cane? Only an individual with a physical, visual impairment is allowed to carry a white cane, right? If you do not have any kind of physical or visual impairment, you are not allowed to carry a white cane, period. Okay? That is an indicator of disability. And therefore, it is illegal for anyone that is not disabled to carry a white cane. So if you were going to be super flat for Halloween, I'm very sorry, the cane got to go. Or you got to paint it a different color. Now, what is the purpose of an exhaust emission system? Well, your exhaust emission system reduces pollution. It takes the smoke that your engine produces, runs it through 2 filters, and expels a safe amount of air pollution, or at least one within acceptable levels from your vehicle, right? When we modify our mufflers, when we take out things like the catalytic converter, when we get a hole in our muffler, the emissions, the pollution goes up because we don't have the proper safety features reducing that down to those safe levels, or to those acceptable levels, because they're not really safe, all right? Drivers are the #1 polluters in the world, right? Now, on a one-way street, what color is the broken lane marker? Whenever all the lanes of traffic are traveling within the same direction, or in the same direction, not within, in the same direction, the lines are white. When traffic is flowing in the opposite direction, the line you cross is yellow. Now, you should dim your lights when you are within how many feet of an approaching car? Now, as I previously mentioned, we only use our high beams when we are on an unlit country road at night. So if they're talking about dimming your lights, they're talking about you are driving on an unlit country road at night. And when a car coming from the opposite direction is within 500 feet, the law says you have to turn your high beams down. Okay? When you are coming up behind a car and you get within 300 feet, you have to dim your lights. So we need to know this information for the exam. But the practical thing to do, the common courtesy is, the second you see another car coming in the same direction, or from the opposite direction, or going in the same direction as you, ahead of you, you dim your lights. Because it is you only drive with your high beams on an unlit country road at night alone. If other cars are present, we use our low beams. If you are not alone, you use your low beams. But you will need to know potentially one or both of these for the exam. So if you are within 500 feet of a vehicle coming in the opposite direction, This is not a city driving rule. This is why it doesn't fall under the 100-foot. Sorry, folks. But if they're coming within 500 feet of the opposite direction, you turn it down. If you're catching up to them, coming from behind them, and you're within 300 feet, you turn them down. The common courtesy, the second you see them, you turn it down. But like I said, numbers are for the exam, not for real life. Now, what do you do if someone is shining their high beams at you? Well, sometimes we think it's the high beam and they just have a ridiculously high vehicle with ridiculously bright lights. And then they turn on the high beams and you're like, Holy Ghost, I'm blind. Yeah, it happens. All right, but what do you do if someone does have their lights and they're blinding you a little bit? Well, you can try flashing your lights at them to see if they can turn theirs down. But there's something you can do to stay safe. Hey, get back over there so I can manipulate the screen. Thank you. All right, slow down and avert your gaze. That means look off to the side. Focus on that white line to the right. Okay, you'll see it's touching your car in a certain position. Make sure that it doesn't move towards the center of the car or off the car, and your vehicle is maintaining lane position. Right? When that lane moves towards the center of the car, you're going off-road. If that line goes off the car towards the fender and then off the car to the right side, that means you're moving towards the center of the road. You may be getting across the lane. Make sure that white line that hits that marks the edge of the road keeps staying on that one spot on your vehicle. All right. Once you have passed the source of the light, you can look back forward, but what we need to do is take our foot off the accelerator while this is happening. We slow down because someone else may be experiencing the same thing and they should be slowing down, right? We don't want to accidentally rear end someone. So once this happens to you, take your foot off the accelerator, avert your gaze, let that white line guide you, keep you on the straight and narrow. Once you're past the light source, you look back forward and resume. All right, question 58. Which lights should be used when you are driving in a fog? I just said it a minute ago. The only time we use our high beams is when we are driving on an unlit country road at night. That means driving in a fog, in heavy rain at night on our shared roadway. We always use our low beams. All right. Why? Because water is amazing at reflecting light. Water is amazing at bouncing light back into your eyes. And so if you have your high beams on in a fog, you're just going to be blinding yourself. Low beams point down at the ground. That light will not bounce back into your eyes. High beams point straight out. That will bounce right back at you. Only use them on unlit country roads at night by yourself. There we go. What is the maximum number of inches you may lawfully allow an object to extend beyond the left fender of your car? It's 3 inches. You get that little Nemo tiny cripple fin. I don't know what the appropriate term, the unformed fin. You just get that little 3 inches. You get 6 inches on the right. Ooh, so luxurious. Not really. I don't know the purpose of having stuff on the side of your vehicle. Sometimes it's the details, little things, accents. But you just get those 3 inches because they do not want you to accidentally hit a car coming from the opposite direction. Right? If you've ever seen the movie Grease, those rims that dude had that shredded up the grease lightning at the end of the movie, those were definitely longer 3 inches, and that's the sort of stuff they're trying to avoid. Right? What should you do when coming onto a street from a private alley or driveway? A private alley or driveway, you have the least importance when it comes to the right-of-way. So what do? You yield the right-of-way to all pedestrians, vehicles, bicycles, and other non-motorized conveyances. And once everything is safe and clear and there is no risk to anyone, including yourself, then you may go. If you are coming from a private road, street, or driveway, an alley, you do not get any kind of right-of-way. You have to wait until it's safe before you go. Remember that. All right. How close to a fire hydrant may a vehicle lawfully park? Yesterday I mentioned we only got to know 3 numbers. For in-city, it's 100 for all the driving ones, 15 feet from a crosswalk, 15 feet from a fire hydrant, and 20 feet from a crosswalk. So you may park 15 feet from a fire hydrant. What happens if you park closer than that and you block the fire hydrant and there's a fire? Well, they break your windows. They unlock your car, they run the hose through there, and that hose has got hundreds of pounds of pressure, and they leak, so the inside of your car is getting soaked. And they fight the fire. And then because you parked there, and they had to break your stuff to access it, you now get a ticket for parking there. Your vehicle is going to get towed, impounded, and you are going to have to pay the citation, which would be $250 to $450, depending on where. Right? And then you're going to have to pay to have your vehicle shampooed if you take it out that day because of all the water they got in there. You're going to have to replace 2 windows, and you're going to have to pay $100 for the tow, or more, depending, right? Used to be $100, maybe it's gone up. Now, here's the deal though. It is still $100 a day after that. So let's say you won't have the money until 7 days later. Well, now it's the ticket, the windows. You can no longer pay to shampoo the carpets. Now they're moldy. Now you're going to have to get them replaced. So that's another expense, probably $300. But let's not worry about that, because the scary part is coming up. Because on top of the impound $100 fee or $150 fee or whatever they charge you initially, it's also $100 a day. So 7 days later, it's now $700 more. This is how cars wind up in police auctions, because very quickly it gets out of hand. All right, if you don't have $500 or $600 to take your car out of the impound that same day that it got towed, then you don't potentially gonna get, or you're not potentially gonna get that car back. Okay? Don't park within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, and you don't have to worry about any of this happening. I've seen them violate a car, and it is hilarious. It is truly funny. Person parked next to a fire hydrant. They smashed out both windows, and this was before the camera phone, so I'm sorry I couldn't record it. Otherwise, that would have been viral. But they smashed out this Yukon's windows, real nice, brand new. Ran the hose through there. Water was soaking the inside completely. They're fighting the frickin' fire. And just the owner comes out and sees their car and starts screaming at these firefighters fighting a fire across the street from their home, just yelling profusely as to why they would have done that to his vehicle and what cause they had to and why couldn't the hose and blah 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 blah. And the dude got himself arrested. It was priceless. So on top of everything else, they had to pay bail and they had to take out the car. I just hope that they had to choose between the two and they chose the car first, because his bail wasn't going to go up. That happens though, folks. Don't believe me? Check YouTube. They've got a few videos that have the before and after aftermath. All right. What does a posted speed limit sign of 55 miles an hour mean? It means that you may drive 55 miles an hour if and only if you are experiencing ideal conditions. For anything that is less than ideal, you have to slow it down. You may not drive faster than the speed limit, but you may be required to drive slower than the speed limit if existing conditions do not permit you traveling at that speed. All right? And don't forget, you can get a ticket for going 55 in a 55 if everyone else was doing 45 and you were, changing lanes aggressively to go 55. Yep, you can still get a speeding ticket, so don't do that. All right, what is the maximum speed limit for passenger cars on Texas highways numbered by this state or United States outside an urban district, outside of city limits? The maximum speed limit is 70 miles an hour. Roads with intersections will not go faster than 70 miles an hour. And personally, I think that's a little too fast for roads with intersections. Because at 70, 2 vehicles traveling in perpendicular directions could crash into each other with forces above 100 miles an hour, resulting in almost assured death. If we just slowed that down to, like, say, 50, yeah, it'd take people 30% longer to get there, but their odds of survival would be much higher. It'd be like, a whole 4% as opposed to 0. Less than 1. Right? But yes, 70 miles an hour is the maximum speed limit for roads that have intersections, for highways in the United States or Texas. Now, how often should you take a break when driving long distances? We want to take a break, we want to stop, we want to stretch, we want to move around every 2 hours or 100 miles. I once drove for 11 hours straight, and when I got out, I couldn't even stand up straight. I couldn't straighten up. I was like in this little old man position. I was like this. And when I went to sleep on the hotel bed, all I could do was just fall forward because I couldn't even. So my feet were still touching the ground, and I was occupying 1/8 of a hotel bed. It was a very bad night's sleep. Never will I do that nonsense again. Every 2 hours or 100 miles, get out the car, stretch, walk around, because maintaining minute amounts of stress, small amounts of work for a long period of time does wear out muscles. It can cause knotting or things like that. So give your body a chance to recuperate every 2 hours or 100 miles. Just a little 5-minute walk, stretch, jump around, do some toe touches, whatever it takes, but limber up. Okay. Now, under what circumstances should you never attempt to pass a car ahead of you? Well, any place you don't have clear line of sight or it's prohibited by law. How do we know it's prohibited by law? Solid white line on our side of the roadway. or a sign, no passing zone, do not pass. When passing another vehicle, what is the appropriate amount of distance you should have between your car and the car you are passing before you may return to your original lane? Wait until you can see both headlights of the car you are passing in your rear view mirror. Okay, this generally means you have 3 to 4 seconds of following distance between you and them. Okay, so make sure you can see both their headlights in your rear view mirror, then you can move over. And at lower speeds, a passing maneuver can take as little as 10-15 seconds. At greater speeds, passing maneuvers can take as long as 45 seconds. All right, so we need to make sure that we have plenty of clear and open road before we attempt to do this while crossing onto the wrong side of the roadway. Now, when are you required to show proof of financial responsibility? Well, first and foremost, what is proof of financial responsibility? You must be able to prove that you can pay for damages you may cause in the event of a collision. Or, commonly known as, you must prove that you have car insurance. Now, there are several methods you can go. You don't actually have to have car insurance, okay? But you have to have some kind of evidence of financial responsibility that must be presented at the time a person applies for a driver's license, registers a motor vehicle, or obtains a motor vehicle inspection certificate. All right. Well, there are several ways, though, and not all of them are having car insurance. You could have car insurance, and this is all the information that the card is going to have. So you could just have a standard insurance form because you do have car insurance. Or, if you have $55,000 lying around, and you have no need for it. I got a special trash can right here. Some people like to call it my pocket, but I call this the $55,000 trash can. If y'all have tons of cash just lying around with no purpose, feel free to throw it away in there. Now, if you have $55,000 that you don't mind giving up until the day you stop driving, and you want to give it to the state comptroller, a judge for the county, or even DPS, you can give them $55,000, and that money will be there to pay for any damages you cause in an accident. Have an accident? No problem. They take that money, they pay for it. If it's not enough, they let you know what you need to pay it off. And then you have to give them another $55,000, and you get to continue driving without insurance. Or you can choose to pay an average of, I'm going to say like $10,000 every decade for car insurance, right? One, you lose money. One, you're going to pay for your own stuff. But the event is that most people don't have $55,000, so we got to have some car insurance. You can also, if you own more than 25 vehicles registered in your name, you can become a self-insured. This is what car lots do because it would be super expensive for them to have all their cars insured. Okay? They have like property insurance in case of like hail damage, stuff like that. But for the most part, they are self-insurers because they can just replace your car with a car they have. Okay? And then the last method you can use, you can have an image displayed on a wireless communication device that has all the information from a regular insurance card, meaning you can have a digital insurance card. Texas does recognize those, but here's the rub, folks. Sometimes phones break in a car accident. Maybe you were on the phone and that's why you had a crash and your phone took one for the team. Keep an old copy of your insurance, or keep an old phone powered off with your insurance card saved to it, put away in the car. That way, in the event that your phone breaks, you can be like, wait, officer, I have a digital one. It's just on my emergency phone. And in case you didn't know, if you have an old phone that doesn't have service, as long as you can still charge it, in the event of an emergency, you can call 911 from that phone, and the call will still go through. So if you know someone that they like walk home from school or whatever, and you're worried about them, give them an old cell phone that doesn't work. It may not have service, but it will still allow them to call 911 in the event of an emergency. I keep a charged up, just like a little burner, one of those little dinky phones that you buy at the convenience store. I've got one of those charged up and in my car, just in case my phone breaks and I need to call 911. Just turn it on, call 911. I check the battery every 3 months. Make sure it's still charged. No big deal. All right. Now, when must you always slow down, and what color warns you to slow down? Well, the color that warns us to slow down is yellow. When must we always slow down? When we see a yellow diamond. Because that's what we do in response. We take our foot off the accelerator, and that's all it takes to slow down. Your car will immediately start to lose speed. That is slowing down. Every time you see a yellow diamond sign, take your foot off the gas, cover the brake, and think about what you need to do to stay safe. If it's a bumper dip, you may need to slow down to 10 miles an hour. If it's a deer crossing sign, you may need to slow down 5 or 10 miles an hour so you can better keep an eye out for deer. Okay? Or maybe it's like warning you about an intersection, and you can see clearly that there's no traffic coming from either direction. So boom, problem solved, no more worries, back up to normal speed, right? But we always take our foot off the accelerator and figure out what the safe thing to do in regards to that warning sign is, all right? What other specific sign warns you to slow down? The yield sign. You slow down and proceed with caution, right? Now, how do you react to a flashing red light? You treat that like you would a stop sign. Stop completely before entering a crosswalk or an intersection, then proceed only when you can do so safely. Vehicles on the intersecting road may not have a stop. So you treat it like a stop sign and you go only when it is safe to do so. Under what conditions must you always stop? Well, we got to stop at a stop sign. We got to stop at a red light. We got to stop at a red blinking light. But this last one can tell you to go through any of those, but nothing can tell you to disregard this last one. And that's the police officer, the traffic control officer. Whether it's some dude working for the construction crew that's got some little flags, that's a traffic control officer. Right? Maybe it's a school crossing guard, that's a traffic control officer. Maybe it's a real police officer, an actual cop out on the roadway. Once they're doing that, they become a traffic control officer. And we always follow their instructions, even if they're asking us to do something that's normally considered against the law. Please go forward on this red light. Yes, I'm letting you go, everyone else has to stop. We follow their instructions. Okay? He can tell you to go through a stop, he can tell you to go through a red, he can tell you to go through a flashing red. But when the police officer tells you to stop, not even Jesus can ask you to move on. All right? Your cousin Jesus, just tell him to be quiet. You are going to stop for the cop. You're not going to ignore him. Because Jesus is always trying to tell me to go. And no. Like, Chewy, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it, primo. That's how it goes. Sorry. Anyway, describe the emblem, which identifies vehicles that travel at speeds of 25 miles an hour or less. Now, the slow-moving vehicle, most people want to call it a triangle. It's not. That looks like a triangle, but it's not, because it's actually a triangle surrounded by 3 bars, making it a hexagon, indeed. Now, these are reflected so you can see them at night, and any vehicle that cannot go faster than 25 has to have one on it. Okay? Period. All right? If a slow-moving vehicle is ahead of you in traffic, especially if it's a tractor, just be cool, be patient. They will move out of your way once they're able to. All right? But if you're honking at them, well, goodwill runs dry real fast when people are irritated. So be courteous, and they'll be courteous to you most of the time. Right? Now, what sign tells you to watch out for a train? Well, only one sign tells you to watch out for a train. That's the circle. It's got one job, so we know it's always warning us about the train. Even if they paint it like Benson from Regular Show, or like the Globe, or a Pokeball. I saw that shortly after Pokemon Go came out. I thought that was funny. Regardless, a circle is a railroad crossing. They're yellow. They're about 100 feet before the railroad crossing, because right at the crossing we also see that cross bug. All right. If you see a train coming down the line, you better hit those brakes, because the train will win every time. All right. Plain and simple, folks. Do not try to beat the train, because the train wins on all ties and outright losses for you. And in the event that you do beat the train, you can still get cited by law enforcement. Can't stress it enough, folks. It's not worth risking your life or your money. Right? Describe the sign that warns you to slow down for a winding road. Well, it's warning you. Therefore, we know it's a yellow diamond. And a winding road. I hope to goodness y'all know what the winding road looks like. That's that little snaky looking sucker, right? It's not one curve. It's not 2 curves. It's many curves. And they are consecutively a-coming. That's a winding road, folks. All right? Road travels between hills, low points in the roadway so that it's easier, cheaper to run roads. Right? Now, what sign indicates the road that you're on merges with another? Well, that's that dangerous one. That's the one where 2 lanes become one, the Spice Girls song. But once again, it's a warning, so it's a yellow diamond, because yellow diamonds are your warning signs. Right? And in this situation, as I mentioned, you got to be looking, you match their speed, you line up the spot, the gap, and you fit into it. Don't go slower, don't go faster. You run the risk of collision. If you can't get up to speed on this kind because of where you are, then skip it and go to the next one because it's super dangerous to hit up there going slower. All right, I've nearly wrecked because other people made that mistake. Now, what kind of sign warns you that the highest safe speed for the turn ahead is 25 miles an hour? That's an advisory speed limit. All right, now it's warning you, so it's underneath the yellow diamond, but it's warning you how fast you can go, so it's a little yellow square with that number 25 in it, right? And a turn, not a curve, a turn has a right angle, so that is a turn. And remember, this is under ideal conditions. If it's rainy, if it's snowy, if it's foggy, if your tires are bad, if you're a little bit sick and you're a little tired and it's hard to focus on your driving, then slow it down. Because for everything that is not ideal, we slow it down. Right? You do not have to make this maneuver at 25. You can do it at 15 or 20 if you want to, if that's what you feel is safe. Right? Now describe the sign that tells you to watch for cross traffic. Well, once again, it is warning you. It is telling you watch for cross traffic. That's a warning sign, and cross traffic is that little T looking thing. So it's a yellow diamond with a T on it. Because that's an intersection. That's what cross traffics are, or cross traffic is. It's an intersection is coming up. Right? Be careful. They might hit you. Right? What type of sign warns you? Oh, it's a warning. It's a yellow diamond to slow down for a sharp rise in the roadway. Well, we've already learned, hopefully, that a sharp rise in the roadway is a bump, and a low point in the roadway is a dip. Unless you're a Jason Mendoza fan, then, well, you know what an odd dip is. But yeah, yellow diamond signs that say bump, and bump and dip are the two most ignored signs. People hit those going way too fast, and I can tell you from personal experience, this can cost you hundreds of dollars. Don't do it. Right? Now describe the sign that tells you that you are on a short state highway or in a city or urban area. Well, that's telling you about the roadway that you're on. That's telling you about how the road functions. So it's going to be a vertical rectangle. All right? And vertical rectangles are black and white. They're telling you about the road or the rules of the road. It's black and white. If it's telling you how far you are from something, then it's going to be a guide sign, a green one. Describe the yield sign. What shape is it? Yield sign is one of those shapes that does single duty, so regardless of paint, condition, 10 million rust particles holding hands singing Kumbaya, if it's an equilateral triangle, we still yield. How do you yield? You take your foot off the accelerator and allow other vehicles to use the intersection ahead of you. Slow down if necessary, stop if necessary, or continue through if nobody's going to use it ahead of you. Right? What color is it? It's red. It used to be yellow, but yellow didn't get enough respect. Now it's red and white. They're one of those strong colors. What is the shape of a keep right sign, and how should a driver react when they see one? Well, a keep right sign is telling you how the roadway works. They're not warning you about anything. They're telling you what you need to do. That's a rule of the road. That is a vertical rectangle. That is black and white. And how do you react when you see one? Stay to the right side of the road. Stay to the right side of the median, because there's probably a crossover for where there's a cross street, and they're just warning you, don't cross over to the other side. That's traffic coming in the opposite direction. All right? When there isn't anything for the lanes to divide them where it can be like a yellow dividing line, they'll have that sign to remind you to stay on the right. What sign tells you to slow down because you're approaching a double curve? The double curve is that Subway S looking one. And yes, Subway did that on purpose. All right? The road curves one way, and then it curves the other. No right angles, no sharp edges. It's nice and gentle. Therefore, it's a double curve. First to the right, then to the left, because we read them bottom to top. All right? That easy, folks. Now, which sign tells you to keep in the right-hand lane when driving slow? This one, super simple. Very plain, very obvious, and yet people still don't understand it. Slower traffic, keep right. When you see this sign, if you are driving under the speed limit or slower than all the people speeding, keep to the right. If you're going the speed limit, you can drive in the center lane. If everyone else is speeding, don't go into the leftmost, because slower traffic, keep right. Right? If you're going lower than the speed limit, keep in the rightmost lane. All the people going under the speed limit are going to be in the rightmost lane. If you drive slower than the speed limit in the other lanes, someone could wind up hitting you because they're going the speed limit. Be careful. Right? What is meant by defensive driving? To avoid crashes, the defensive driver should stay alert, keep their eyes moving, keep track of what is happening at all times, look for trouble spots developing all around, and have a plan of action. Okay? This is the precept. These are the principles based on what we teach for driving, because we want safe defensive drivers. We want people that are going to drive for the next 40 years without causing a collision. So we will teach you how to do all of this. IPDE, zone control, Smith system, all that wonderful stuff. We're going to be talking about it next week. And it's what keeps you safe. It's how we drive defensively. All right? Know that the law requires drivers to protect each other from their own mistakes. If someone does something just dumber than dirt, they are not allowed to suffer the consequences if the other drivers were able to avoid those consequences for them. Right? Guy runs a red light. If everyone else has the ability to stop, they need to stop. We're not allowed to just hit him because he ran the red light. We need to attempt to preserve all other motorists, even when they do something extremely stupid. All right? That's it. All right? Now, every day, make the world a better place, but first, do no harm. Every day, make that choice, make that decision, make that change in your life that is going to take you one step closer to the person you want to be, that is going to take you one step closer to the life you want to live, that is going to take you one step closer to the kind of friend you want to be, to the career path that you want, because the power to choose, the power to change, the power to control your life is 100% in your hands. You simply need to decide that you want to be in control. All right, folks? So I've gone ahead and finished up today. So if you do not have any questions, issues, or concerns, please feel free to bugger off. All right, y'all can go. I will be getting the assignment posted here in just a few minutes. And, of course, tomorrow's live stream link. Now, for tomorrow, please do remember, ladies and gentlemen, that we are doing the Day 5 assignment together. So I will be posting that at the beginning of class. If you watch on a mobile device and you're not able to shrinky-dink the screen and have another page open at the same time, please have a secondary device or a laptop available for tomorrow so that you can answer the questions, follow along with us at the same time as we answer them as a class. All right, and if you need to reread the question, well, you'll have it there on the screen, but you'll also have the assignment open so that you can read it for yourself. All right, 3 correct answers and we move on. 3 incorrect answers and I tell you the correct answer, the why, and we move on. That takes 20 to 30 seconds. If it takes 60 seconds to get 3 right answers, I'd much rather get 3 fast wrong answers. So be ready. Take your guess and jump on the bandwagon. Once you got 2 people agreeing, give me the third. If it's 3 wrong, 30-second explanation and moving on. Okay? But if we're waiting and nobody wants to be mistaken, nobody wants to be wrong, nobody wants to be incorrect, then we're not going to get through all of them. Okay, because that's what happens. When people hesitate, we don't make it through them all. When people jump on it, when people are like, I want to finish, we get through every last question. I've done it 3 times and only 3 times. Because only 3 times have people wanted it. All right, if there are just 3 of y'all giving the answers and one of y'all hesitates, that's going to make it tough. So everyone that's present tomorrow, if you think you know the right answer, throw it on there. All right, please. And then when we have a repeat, like let's say answer for the last question was B and it's B again, please put again B or B again, just so that I know where it starts with the new answers. Otherwise, I may think that they were just from the previous one. Okay? But that is tomorrow. That is what we're going to be doing, because we are going to be doing the Day 5 DPS exam review. We will go over every question together, and we will go over every answer together that we have time for. Whichever ones you don't finish as part of class, you'll do on your own, submit, and bam, you've got the Day 5 assignment done. It's awesome sauce, because once you've got Day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, Saturday morning between 10 a.m. and noon, Mr. Sauceda will be checking the assignments, making sure everyone has everything done, and everyone that has completed 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will receive to the email they were registered under their very own DPS test link. Now, sometimes our email addresses are like, aha, Google Documents. I know you guys use those for physing. Haha, spam filter. So if you've got all the assignments done, if you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are redacted from the assignment sheet, listen, we'll post that tomorrow and explain how that works. But if you see that you've got all your assignments submitted, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you can't find the link, it's there. Look for it. Okay? Either go to the search bar at the top of your email address and look for Hernandez Driving School, because all our emails are from us, right? Or you can look for DPS written, and it'll pull up any emails that mention that. All right, folks. But that will be the assignment we do tomorrow, and then Saturday, everyone that's got 1 through 5 completed will get the link. Anyone that does not have 1 through 5 completed by Saturday at noon will have to wait till they do a check, or Mr. Salcedo does a check on Monday. So if you don't get it by Saturday, the earliest you can get it is Monday. Please don't be asking, can I please get the link? Those are the deadlines, folks. Now, here's the good news, though. You won't be allowed to drive until you've completed day 16, or at least not with us, until you've completed the day 16 assignment, and you won't be given a certificate until you paid for the course in full. So if you haven't paid for the course in full, and you haven't finished your assignments, which no one will have by day 6, right? Then it doesn't matter if it's a couple days later that you pass the exam, all right? But we do need to pass the exam, and we do need to pay for the course in full to get that certificate that lets us get the permit from DPS, right? And all you have to do to get that exam is have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 done for your daily assignments. All right, folks. Tomorrow we will post the assignment sheet link so y'all can see how that works, and I'll re-explain everything then. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not seeing any questions coming up onto the chat. So everyone, as always, thank you so much for choosing Hernandez Driving School. Thank you for joining us today. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, live at 5 for your afternoon driving lesson, when we do the DPS driven or written test review together, going through all the possible questions you may be experiencing on that test. Bye, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful evening. And don't forget, observation. It matters. It counts. We need to work on it. Anytime you're in the passenger seat, look at the intersections as you're approaching, because when you start driving, that's what you got to do to stay safe. All right. Bye. Thank y'all. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Deuces.